We'll call this special meeting council to order at 12 noon. Need a motion for a waiver of the minutes. That's moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So we'll open the hearing for PC variation PC 3917. This is for Habitat for Humanity at 229 Lorne Avenue East.
Excuse me, Your Worship. I'm going to have to declare a conflict of interest for this.
Okay.
Hearing.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
Are you just dealing with one lot at a time? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, the purpose of the variation is to bring the houses that we're building even with the other houses on the street. The other houses are quite old on that street, but I notice people, rather than tearing them down, are renovating them. And so I suspect they're going to be there a long time. We think our houses fit in very well in that area. They have, most of them have porches, and ours has a porch as well. We feel that we need to move the houses forward also to have better backyards. We back onto the parking lot of Army Navy, and so we wanted to have a little better backyard there as well. And we just think that bringing them up will make it look like the rest of the houses, and that's one of the issues we worry about, is that our houses are different and are perceived as habitat houses, and after we build them and the people take over the mortgages of them, they're not habitat houses anymore. So that's the reason we feel we need to bring them forward.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Clifford? Okay, thank you, Mr. Clifford. Okay, we need a motion to close the hearing for variation PC 3917.
I'll move to close. I will move to close public hearing for variation PC 39-17.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So, as we heard, Habitat for Humanity is looking for a front yard requirement reduction from 7.5 meters to 4.27 meters. Mr. Clifford is here representing them. We did hear that it is in an effort to maintain streetscape and to just fits better in terms of the front and backyard. So I'm not going to go into the history. We know that. The application has been circulated to various city departments with no concerns. And as per usual, the public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. Just as a reminder, this does fit because it is in an R1 residential zone. So it is a recommendation of your committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Habitat Humanity to vary the front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 4.27 meters at the property known as 229 Lorne Avenue, which is legally described as Lot 148, Block 3, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Although any questions, comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So our second conditional hearing is for conditional use hearings for PC 4117. Sorry, it's for 4017 Habitat for Humanity at 233 Lorne Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Mr. Clifford?
The rationale is the same for this lot as well. We feel that it'll have better curb appeal if it's not set back, and it'll fit into the neighborhood much better. And again, giving them a larger backyard and less front yard. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clifford. Need a motion to close the hearing?
I'll move to close variation PC 40-17 Habitat for Humanity 233 Lorne Avenue East.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So once again, we understand that we have the option to approve or deny this variation request, very similar to the previous application that we just looked at. Again, R1 residential family, single family zone. No concerns within our own city departments. Just a small difference in this one is that there is an easement agreement for an HVAC equipment in the rear yard, so that's already been dealt with another party. So with that in mind, it is a recommendation of your committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Habitat for Humanity to vary the front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 4.27 meters at the property known as 233 Lorne Avenue, which is legally described as Lot 149, Block 3, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We'll open the conditional use hearing for PC 4117. This is for Lara Nova at 524 First Street Northwest. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? A motion to close the hearing?
I will move to close public hearing for conditional use PC 41-17.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So this we've already looked at this as council as well, and the options here obviously are to approve this application, to deny the application, or to approve with conditions. And so just as a reminder, we have Laranova has applied for a conditional use to allow for a daycare in an R1 residential single-family zone. Again, the application was circulated to various city departments and no concerns were raised. And as per usual, public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. So there are no issues from City Operations Department with this application, and really no reason why it wouldn't support it. So with that in mind, I will move to approve that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Elizaveta Laranova to allow for a daycare in R1 residential single-family zone at the property 524 First Street Northwest, which is legally described as lots 759, 760, Plan 66, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Braze. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Wall?
I'm just wondering about the conditional use number. It's the same as the previous one, 4117.
It's 4017 is the previous one. For Habitat Humanity, you
It was
mean?
40 and 41 for Habitat.
No, there's 3917, 4017.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
41.
My mistake. Yeah.
I think it's correct.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We'll open the hearing for variation 4217. This is for tar at 25 Assiniboine Drive. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
Yes, thanks for having me. My variation proposal is to build a second-story deck onto our house. There's currently an existing deck that we just find too small and hot for use, being on the west side. When we originally built the home, we had to obtain a variation to build closer to the river, so that in feet at that time was reduced from 200 feet down to 135. And I'd like to build a 20-foot deck that will also extend into that area closer to the river. So, that will be reducing it from 135 feet down to 115, but it is a second-story deck, so it really is not prone to flooding or any type of water damage if that were ever to occur, and doesn't put the house at any more risk. As well, there was an engineering study done when we got the original variation that showed that there'd been no erosion to the bank in 10 years, and they didn't feel that there would be any further erosion. The bank was supported with rubble back in 1980, and we've had no movement in it since. The riverbank is still 135 feet from the house. even after the flood of 2011 that had the river right up at the top for several weeks. So I don't think there's any danger from that standpoint. And I would believe that I haven't heard anything. You council have never heard anything from neighbors with any problem. The house is really not even in view of any of our neighbors and would not be an issue from that standpoint or from an aesthetic standpoint to the neighborhood. So.
Okay. Were there any questions for Mr. Tarr? Mr. Fraze?
I have a question, but I don't know who would be best to address it. I know you're coming to the city for approval, but is this also subject to approval by Rivers and Streams or some government body? Would you know that?
I don't know that.
I can tell you it wasn't necessary on the original variation to go from 200 to 135. There was nobody involved except the city.
Okay.
I think maybe because the city has a bylaw saying you have to be this far back, that it may be okay with that.
That's a city bylaw.
Yes, this is in zoning.
I didn't mean to hold up the process. I was just curious.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Tarr? Okay, thank you. Any motion to close the hearing?
I'll move to close variation PC 42-17 TAR at 25 Assiniboine Drive.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So once again, we do have the options to approve or deny, and so we've heard from Mr. Tarr that this is something that was previously approved, and so now with this amendment, which is a second-story deck, and again, we did hear a little bit about damage to homes, which really honestly is not necessarily a city function. This is a bylaw that was addressing an amount of feet away from the river, and so we're basically approving that exception. Involving overland flooding or damage to properties is really none of council's concern, quite honestly. So this is just something that deals with our acceptance of that many feet away. So we did hear from Mr. Tarr saying that this amendment will now take it to approximately 115 feet. And so from my chair, absolutely no risk in terms of adhering to this bylaw and approving this conditional use. So, or sorry, this variation. So. With that in mind, I move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Brent Tarr to vary the minimum setback from the Assiniboine River of 60.1 meters from the top of the existing bank to be reduced to 34 meters at the property known as 25 Assiniboine Drive, which is legally described as Lot 3, Plan 2436, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Fraze. All those, any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our business, so we are adjourned at 12:13 p.m.